I'll just add that I hold open the possibility of a God in the same bracket as we could be plugged into the Matrix, or we could be dreaming right now in a sleep. If theists wish to triumph over that, then they're welcome to it. But
I think that's right, and I think that Owen identified an important distinction that's got to be made. When I make that concession, it is a concession to the existence of a supernatural entity, and that's it. If the existence of a God also includes Jesus, miracles, etc., then no, my concession does not go that far. Anyway, I think you wanted to brown nose Aaron.
Yeah, fantastic job. I can hear yourself. Well, I'm sure you've heard this enough. I mean, I heard yourself talking over it, saying, reflecting back, saying you could have done better. But honestly, to someone like me, that just looks immensely impressive.
Well, thank you. I would have done better if I could have restrained and let some of these people make their comments and then address them. I would have rather done that.
Well, it was kind of tough, wasn't it?
Well, I have to tell you, when you've got 3 different guys arguing with you at the same time, and you're surrounded by 50 people, and they all have cameras, I don't know, the pressure level does seem to come up just a smidge.
New experience for all of us, I think.
No, it wasn't actually, and I'll tell you for why. And I've got to say this story because it made me giggle anyway. Over the whole time I was there would be occasions when I would be walking around with Thunder or walking around with Owen, and would be stopped. But it was never to stop me. It was always to stop one of those two, and they would say, "Oh, can I have a photograph?" And I would be the one ending up taking the picture of them. And whilst I'm taking the picture, there were occasions when these people would turn to one of these two and say, "You know, I so love the Magic Sandwich Show." And he'd be like, "Hang on, but what about me?"
It's because you're you're in black and white, DPR. They don't recognise you in colour.
You don't have enough hair, DPR. That's what it is.
That's what I was telling people. I need to get more facial hair. Oliver, was there anything else?
You did a fantastic job operating the camera.
Meow!
You're done.
I want to say something on
It's
this.
rag on DPR day.
Okay, now this was the first time the Magic Sandwich Show we were the closing act, and I did not want to do this. The Thunderfoot had this idea about having all these people in the audience. This is a massive auditorium. It was a huge group. There's like 300 people in attendance, many of them PhD professors in this or that field of science or philosophy or what have you. And Thunderfoot wants them all to stand and sing, "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life." And I was so totally against that. However, Thunder was insistent that if he had none of the support of anybody that else was on the show, he was going to do it anyway. And it was actually working. And that was a great way.
I owe Thunder an apology for that because I was totally against it. I thought it was a crazy idea. I didn't think that anyone would join in. I thought it would just really end everything on a really flat note. And quite the contrary, as you say. I think there were actually probably more than 300 in there. And they were all joining in. It was fantastic. The only person that didn't join in was me.
Yeah, and I want to add too that it was a great thing being in the same room with you. I mean, we had Zumgitz Chris, who I finally met in person. You know, I feel like I've been a friend of hers for 3 years, and we finally met in person just this last weekend. And Thunder's over from Europe, you're over from England, I'm out of Texas. We're all in the same room, and it was a wonderful experience to do the show that way.
Well, it's a shame Concordance wasn't with us, I have to say that.
And yes, and I don't understand what that is, but I've been sending business his way. People have been sending me emails asking me questions that really are more appropriate for Concordance. Concordance really needs a bit more support in his endeavors, I think, at this point. I don't know why he's on the show, why he's not on the show with us right now. But
well, I don't think there's anything sinister about it. The fact is that he's a married man with children, and he also, as by virtue of his job, travels a great deal. I don't think he's fallen out with us or anything like that.
I mean, he has a PhD in biology. He designs analytical. He designs analysis computers for spacecraft. I mean, this is a respectable gig. And I realize that this activism, you know, what does the activism pay? You know, I mean, in the odd chance that somebody might give you a donation, that's about the most you'd get out of it. So, I mean, as much support as we could lend to Concordance so that he can continue with the activism with the rest of us, I'd appreciate.
And this is the crazy thing. I'm a sort of research scientist, so, and I'm just in academia. Concordance is semi-industrial. This is the thing we, for folks like you and me, Aaron, money would actually make a difference in the latitude that we have to make videos. With Concordance, that won't make any difference. The only thing that we can do is offer him emotional support.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I try my best, you know, whenever he's around. But
oh, no, I've not said this for a while, Aaron, but we're getting a lot of noise from you. Can you mute your mic?
Shut up, you girl.
Seriously, we are. There's clicking noise coming in. It's not just me that hears it. Welcome to the show, Live Life, and can I say what a pleasure it was to meet you in DC. First question for you, though.
Yes.
What I don't understand is what's going on above your head, because it looks as if you're in a tent.
Yeah, it looks like I'm in a tent. I hear that on a lot of my videos. People are like, what are you in a tent? I'm like, nah, it's actually second level of my house, and it's angled roof. It's actually pretty tall. You know, it's about 6 foot, so it's not too bad, but the outsides are pretty small. You know, you can't really even fit a bed underneath, but yeah, I hear it a lot, so. But,
yes, as I say, it was good to see you, and thank you for posting that video.
You're welcome.
Footage of me. How can we help you today, sir?
I just want to say it was nice to meet all you guys, all three of you, and shake all your hands. It was definitely a pleasure. I had a great time at the rally. It was a great time. It was my first time to a secular event, and I must say I had a really good time. I was only there for about 4 hours. It was about a 6-hour round trip for me, but it was a really good time, and I really enjoyed it. Everybody seemed happy, and it was just smiles everywhere, man. It was a great time. I enjoyed the speakers and all that. It was just a really good time. But what I really want to ask a couple questions on is Thunderfoot. I watched your video today on the new Gallup poll out there, and it seems like it's 32% supposedly are Americans are non-religious. Now, my question to all you are, how serious can we take this poll? Can we use it as some sort of evidence towards a more secular America? Also, one question that goes on top of that is, do we target the 28 moderate religious people out there and promote a rational morality, reason, logic, and to be free thinkers? Because most moderates state that they use the teachings of the Bible as a good moral compass. Do we need to explain to them that we are born with an eternal moral compass and show the evidence at hand for such? So I want to know your thoughts on that.
Thunder, let's start with the poll, because I saw it in your video, but I've not actually read it. Polls can be misleading, and unless you actually look at the questions that were asked and who was asked, they can give, or you can believe that they give misleading results.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I think the poll's about right. I mean, it's certainly indicative of the way things are going. If you actually just plot this up on all the other graphs of how these things have been trending over the last 10 years, this is not that, it's the largest fraction of people who have no religion, or for whom religion plays no part in their life, but it's part of the same trend. And I think it's one of those things that you will get to these tipping points that there's actually a lot more people out there who think that, well, actually this religion's bullshit. It's just, I should actually go with the flow, because if I don't go with the flow, I have all of these social prices to pay from the people who are religious around me. So once their market dominance fades, so to speak, people can actually say what they want. And I think that this is actually more representative of where America would want to be. You know, that if you were to actually just give America a clean slate and say, well, those who want religion, you go for religion, and those who don't, don't. I reckon you would end up with 90% non-religious.
Can I just deal with the poll issue, and specifically the point you made about people looking to the Bible for moral guidance? When we had Richard Dawkins on, he talked about the poll that his foundation had done recently. The results were published recently, and of the 55% who put down Christianity as their religion, when that 55% were questioned further about their beliefs and asked, for example, specifically, where do you get your moral guidance from? I think over a third of them said, my intuition, my natural intuition. They never mentioned the Bible. I don't think that most people would genuinely look to the Bible. I can see why they may say that, but find me a moral issue where you could go to the Bible and get a clear, coherent guidance from the Bible.
2 men in one bed. Jesus himself can make it no clearer.
Yeah, I just actually did a response video to your video on, I took the same exact website and I went to their poll from 2009, and I sort of compared the numbers from 2009 to the one that just came out, and I showed the difference on how people, where it was from 65% to 40% of people that live their lives religiously, and I showed that in my video. So it was a big jump in numbers, I think. So like, if you feel we can use this as some kind of sort of evidence that that's an accurate poll, then so be it. I think it's a great jump for us. It seems like more people from 2009 to 2012 are more moderates now than they are, devoutly religious.
Yeah, and it's going to be a slow process, but
yeah.
Let me ask the panel this question. What do you think the significance of the Reason Rally was? How significant do you think it was?
I think it was a huge step for the secular community. I think it's going to be a great positive outlook for hopefully the near future for us. The speakers were great. I believe that another thing I want to bring up is the bashing of religion. Now, they bashed the religion a little bit at the Reason Rally, which I don't mind. I don't mind it, but some people might take offense to it that were there. I don't know. I'm just speculating right now. I'm like, do we push for more of an aggressive approach and bash religion, or do we back off a little bit, promote secularism in society, or do we keep the same principles at hand if the numbers are showing that, it seems like it's working?
Well, let me pause you there, because it's not quite what I was asking. The background to my question is this, that I have sought to find any press reporting about the Reason Rally, and I've found more column inches in English newspapers than I have in American papers. It doesn't seem to have been covered in, certainly not, it's been covered by Fox in a derogatory way. Yeah. I don't think there were it got so little coverage. This is why I'm somewhat pessimistic about how effective it is. And yeah, okay, people will look on the YouTube videos of it and things like that, but they're converted already. So I just wonder how far the message got, and that's why I was asking how significant it was.
I'm sorry. Yeah, now I understand. Yeah, I don't think the message is out there as it should be. It should be out there a lot more aggressively. I mean, just like you said, I think there was a Fox reporter there that covered it, and he just did a small video on it. I'm like, they didn't even make it on their main page on Fox, and you really had to search for it to find it. But yeah, it should have been covered. I feel for us to move forward, it definitely needed to be in the media, and I just found it pretty impulsive that they didn't even really cover the event whatsoever.
What are your thoughts, Thunder and Aaron?
I found it interesting that the person that wrote the article that I read from Fox News was actually fair, which was bewildering because it was so fair to us that I had to double check to make sure that this actually came from Fox.
Yeah, however, in the opinion section, Aaron.
Yeah. Then the more popular one actually was loaded onto the Huffington Post, and the Thinking Atheist just did a show about this. When I read that guy's article, Corey something or other, I can't remember what his name. This was absolutely reprehensible. He described all of us as being angry because we are lost. You couldn't have gotten more vitriol. And this one was in the Huffington Post. Completely unfair.
Before you come back to you, Thunder, can I just say that our lines are open, so to speak. I've got no one wanting to talk to us today. So, again, whatever you want to talk about, it doesn't have to be Reason Rally, it doesn't have to be the Atheist Convention. Any questions, we're always happy to take. Send a contact request to Magic Sandwich Show on Skype. Thunder.
Yeah, I too was, looked back with hindsight, this could have been played significantly better in several aspects. I think the organisers did well to pull the event off, but I think there are lessons, ironically, that, me, Aaron, Chrissy, the Thinking Atheist, if you actually just take a look at our combined viewer figures, they're, certainly in the tens, maybe even in the order of 100,000 per day. And you compare that to 20,000 people in Washington for one day. Now, the 20,000 people were there. They were, there were 20,000 motivated enough to get out and do stuff. And the other thing that was great is that they were right in the middle of Washington. So this, I think, sends a very strong message. Even if it wasn't strongly covered in the media, it's now on the record. It's part of history. So apparently they tried to do something like this 10 years ago and they only got 2,000. This year, despite the rain, it was an order of magnitude bigger. So I think this actually very much goes on these sort of trends that America is becoming more secular. But I think that if we had had our shit more together, and by us, I essentially mean we really take the responsibility for this, that I think that if we had actually been coordinated, we could have actually generated the buzz ourselves. And thereby generated the media interest, but that never really happened. I mean, to an extent, it couldn't. We were all busy actually at the rally, so we, if you like, missed out an entire slice of the media that we actually have access to.
But my point is this, Thunder: the media that we have access to did do a fairly good job in my view. What the media we don't have the access to are obviously much larger, like Fox News and the like. I have to say though, when I got back to the hotel room, I turned on CNN and they had about a 1-minute report on it. So at least there was one report on CNN. I don't know how often they run it, but the big organisations just didn't. They were not interested.
Well, no, I don't think it's that they weren't interested. If I were playing it again. Everything's organized as it was, I would have actually put a lot more advertising into DC and Baltimore, 2 million strong cities. If you could just get the secular population out of those to see people like Eddie Izzard, I reckon you could have almost got into the 100,000 type numbers. By the time you're into the 100,000 type numbers, then this really does generate its own media. It really does generate its own attention. The second thing is that with hindsight, we should have actually been writing to people like these media outlets, asking them to cover it. What are you going to do about the Reason Rally? Encouraging our subscribers to write to these news outlets to get them to cover it. If they get 1,000 emails saying, you've got to cover the Reason Rally, this is going to be the biggest event of our time, sort of thing, or a defining moment of the secular movement, then I think we would have actually bought out those news outlets. And it's all easy to see with hindsight, but never happened.
Aaron.
I don't fault the organizers of this event at all. I mean, I thought Silverman did a fine job. I have actually only one beef with Silverman, and that is that I told him that I have to have an opportunity to meet Eddie Izzard, and he didn't provide that opportunity. So that's my one beef with Silverman on that. Otherwise, I thought the event exceeded my expectations. I mean, as far as I'm not talking about in terms of numbers. I'm talking about the type of performance. I mean, think about the risks that you're talking about when you're doing a rally, a political rally. You want to get people to, emotionally responsive, and you have academic intellectuals and PhD professors and everything. And how would you expect that to work when you're talking about a political rally? And it came off very well. These people did a very good job. I have no complaints with that at all. So in that respect, the event exceeded my expectations, and the fact that we had Zomgit's Chris up there speaking was a moment that I was enormously proud of her for being a grassroots activist and being elevated to that stance, coming from Romania and then speaking on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. I mean, spectacular. In American colloquialism, you go girl. I was very, very pleased on the
yes,
whole.
Yes, and I want to use that as an example to encourage anyone that may be watching and maybe thinking, oh, well, there's not much point in me dipping my toe into the water and getting involved. It was only 3 years ago that Zomgit's Chris first approached, I think, Owen and then myself because she'd received a DMCA on one of her videos 3 years ago. At that time, she had less than half the subscribers that I had, and I only had 3,000. Since then, she has gone on to become an international public speaker. So, to say, well, there's nothing I can do. Oh, yes, there is. And in 3 years' time, starting from nothing, you could be on some stage in front of TAM or an atheist convention doing likewise. So don't think that your voice should not be heard or you can't do anything. Live Life, going back to you, I'm sorry, your question was sort of like multi-parted. We've discussed the poll, but you were then saying, should we be seeking to direct our message to a certain section? Just repeat that bit for us again.
Yeah, at the poll I was looking at is like, do we target the more moderate religious people and promote reason, logic, be free thinkers, and who do we target now? Do we target a certain demographic, or do we just keep on doing what we're doing? I just want to get your ideas on that.
I'd like to volunteer the first answer there. The funny thing about the atheist movement is it quite a lot different than everybody else. I mean, we want to run ourselves out of business. I look forward to a day when somebody who describes themselves as being atheist doesn't make any sense, because you're saying that you don't believe in possible nonsense for no good reason, that you don't believe in genie-like mystical apparitions somehow controlling reality. It should be the norm that people do not assert such things like this. It should be the norm that people do not get respected for their faith. And faith meaning that you have an absolute conviction that is unwarranted and unsupported and indefensible. And if in that case, why should we respect that belief? It should be that if you posit the existence of some entity or force or mechanism or power or what have you, that you should present the evidence for it. And when you don't have the evidence to bear, if instead you're bringing emotion to the argument, then it should be that everyone strokes their beard and stares at you with a raised eyebrow until you are politely escorted out of the room and maybe given something soft to play with so that you don't hurt yourself. That's the way it should be. And that's the society I'm looking for.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I would add slightly on the question of what tone should we take to move things forwards. Yeah. I think the spectrum approach is always best. There will always be some optimal tone for actually moving things forwards, but I don't think that any monochromatic message will ever be as effective as a range of messages. So there will always be people who are activists, and if they don't actually if they don't feel that there's actually anything for them to do anymore, they'll lose interest and go and do something else. And there are people who are sort of very peripheral, who don't really care much about religion one way or the other, but actually getting the message out there that, look, this Bible talks about slaughtering animals and how God cares about fatty lobes over livers and that sort of thing. This book is crazy, and they'll say, well, actually, okay, I changed my my mind. So I think you need this sort of spectrum approach is better. And I'd just like to add briefly about what Aaron was saying. I mean, I agree that Silverman did an absolutely fantastic job with the rally. But I do think that, you know, having actually seen how it worked this time, that I think you would probably need 10% more budget, essentially just for the PR. And with that, you could actually get a disproportionate return on it.
Well, I'd certainly echo Thunder's comments. I refer to it as a blunderbuss approach. And the reason I think it's important is that whenever you talk to anyone who has gone through the deconversion process, and I met a few more over the course of last weekend, and again, the stories are always the same. It is a fairly lengthy process, and there is not one particular argument, one book, one conversation that they had or read or whatever that did it. There may have been one that they can identify as a final straw, but it's a gradual process, and all sorts of different influences are affecting them along this route. So, as I say, I'm with Thunder, though. I call it a blunderbuss approach. You can have, even though, okay, I don't think he is, but you can have this strident Dawkins, or you can have the softly approach. You can have on YouTube, you can have blog, radio shows, you can write articles, whatever. Just help getting a message across. And I know, Thunder, you're waving. I'll come back to you in a second. The other thing I wanted to say about the reason why, whilst I still remember, is that what I thought was fantastic is the atmosphere. And, you know, anyone who has any footage of that, or sees any footage, and then says that atheists are all miserable and depressed or angry or violent, I'm sorry, it just completely undermines that argument. Thunder, I think you wanted to come back.
Yeah, I mean, it's this thing that people almost seem to call Dawkins strident as par for the course by, I don't think it's particularly true. I mean, I think Dawkins is one of the more softly spoken, meek and mild type atheists. And if I had to guess, the reason that he has this label of being the, you know, strident and shrill thing is because people don't like to be on the edges of social groups. And so they actually say, well, I'm not as far as Dawkins, but I'm somewhere between Dawkins and someone else. Thereby, they're in the middle of a population, and there they feel more comfortable. But I've just never seen Dawkins as this strident atheist. I thought he's always been rather softly spoken.
But I mean, one of the criticisms that we get of being strident or aggressive is simply because by saying to a theist, I don't respect your beliefs, you basically, I see no evidence for your God. That of itself, even something as mild an observation as that, causes them such upset that they think that is strident and aggressive and offensive and disrespectful. Aaron?
I would have thought that PZ is far more strident, actually, than Dawkins. I mean, Dawkins gets all the credit, but PZ is so much more front line, I think, than Dawkins is. And PZ was out in the crowd. When I came out, I was given the VIP seating, which I appreciate, and it was nice, but it didn't feel right being there and not engaging with everybody. So, I mean, I got out and I got into the crowd, and PZ was there. He spent a good deal of time hanging out with my son, which I was very proud to see. He also went in with the protesters and was debating with them for a bit before he had to go up on stage. And sadly, I missed PZ's speech because when PZ had to take off, I mean, I ended up surrounded by all these people in camera and everybody yelling at me, and I had a great time with it. But on being strident, I don't think that you're being disrespectful of a person when you say that you disrespect their beliefs, because the person and the beliefs, contrary to what many religious believers feel, the person and the beliefs are very separate. And you have to remember that, as I pointed out to these kids that I was arguing with, in this event where there's 20,000 people, most of them were former believers. Most people would have, at one time in that group, argued the very same side that they're on years earlier. And that they eventually learned something that these kids didn't yet know. hopefully these kids will eventually learn it and they'll come back out of the religious poisoning that's involved with them. It's not a matter of identity, what you believe. It's a bad dietary habit. It's an addiction. It's something that needs to be changed.
And just going back to that point very briefly, if by suggesting to someone that your view is that they believe in something for which there is no evidence and that is irrational, if that causes some upset, then how could you water down the message any more and present it any more politely? You can't. So if that expression of your opinion is strident, then okay, we're all strident. Live life. Was there a further point you wanted to raise?
No, I think you guys, I think I covered it all. So, yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And I probably agreed with like 99% of these stuff you guys said. So I appreciate having me on the show again.
Thank you very much. And it was, as I say, it was a great pleasure to meet you last weekend.